Our collective voice is one that can't be silenced because our collective voice is so strong to say no to racism and bigotry and anti-Semitism. My family and I have been victims of anti-Semitism, whether it be in business or offhand remarks, or most acutely when my then 13-year-old son was bullied with anti-Semitic taunts and slurs and even violence. And I always felt empowered to stand up and to call out that hateful behavior when it arose. But as I watched the events of Charlottesville unfold, I had a lot of emotions, as I'm sure many of you did as well. I was angry, I was heartbroken, but for the first time, I had a lot of anxiety. And I'm not alone in that. Members of my congregation, including Holocaust survivors, are in a deep state of anxiety and shock over what they were witnessing again in their lifetime and on American soil, no less. Swastika flags flying and hearing chants of "Jews will not replace us" was really horrifying. But that protest and what's going on around the country, it's about more than anti-Semitism. It's about all the isms and all the phobias: racism, sexism, Islamophobia, homophobia, xenophobia, and sadly, I could go on with those lists. And these people weren't just chanting vile opinions, they had shields and clubs and guns, and that threat of violence is a weapon in and of itself. It's meant to make us afraid and to separate us and make us feel surrounded, and to feel like somehow these people are able to dictate the terms of our conversations in our communities. So we look to help from our tradition, and there's an amazing chapter in the Bible from the book of Deuteronomy that teaches us how we are meant to react when we are attacked or when someone is assaulting us. Because our first response is to be afraid. Our first response is to push back and shy away, but that's not what the Torah tells us to be the right response. It says, when enemies try and sweep away civilized conversations, I paraphrase here a little bit. So when enemies push away civilized conversation or human dignity and equality, those things that we all hold onto as our core human values, the Torah teaches you may not let your courage falter, you may not be in fear, and you must not panic. Even though those are instinctual responses, we can't let those feelings stop us from rising to the challenge of standing against hate and standing up for our community. And seeing over 1,000 people gathered in Misson Plaza and watching on TV over 20,000 people showing up in Boston and in solidarity rallies all over the country, I'm fired up. I feel empowered. I feel hopeful. And what rings in my ears is the voice of a coalition of humanity from all walks of life, calling us to action, to stand up for what is right and what is good, to fight to ensure that the very rights and freedoms upon which this great nation was founded are applied equally and fairly to all. Our collective voice is one that can't be silenced because our collective voice is so strong to say no to racism and bigotry and anti-Semitism. So this morning, in closing, I would just like to offer some words of strength and hope in the form of a prayer, because that's what I do. So, Holy One of blessing, grant us the will to stand firm, to not be silent or afraid. Grant us the courage and resolve to speak when there is hatred, to act when there is confusion, and to join with others to build a world of safety, understanding, and acceptance. Help us heal our fractured and broken world, and teach us to be a force for justice and kindness. Help us to be a beacon of light and compassion. As it is written, be strong and let your heart have courage. Do good, seek peace, and pursue it. And I say, amen. Thank you for inviting me.